So I'm Breanne Stewart. I'm the network director of Rare Kids Can, and Dr. Thierry Lacaze is the nominated principal investigator who will be helping facilitate some discussion if we have some at the end. So Rare Kids Can, what is it? What are we? We are a pediatric rare disease clinical trials and treatment network. And we were asked to speak today on our revised strategic plan. There's a lot of overlap and initiatives that are helpful for the pediatric oncology community, and some of the areas or some of the initiatives that we are embarking on right now will be applicable in introducing access to therapies for the pediatric oncology space as well. So our vision. We believe that every child, adolescent, and young adult in Canada that is affected by a rare disease should have access to effective and innovative treatments. As of right now, there's only about 5% of rare diseases that have, or rare disorders that have an approved treatment. And that means that a lot of the treatment comes through clinical trials. And so our network, we received an investment from the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. There was a funding call back in 2023 to support the development of a national pediatric rare disease clinical trials and treatment network. So we have received 5 years of funding, just shy of $20 million to set up our infrastructure. Now, an important thing to note is the host institution of Rare Kids Can is not any single pediatric research institution. We are embedded within MyCERN, which is the Maternal Infant Child Youth Research Network, which is a standalone not-for-profit legal entity. This has created a lot of flexibility for us. We have our own legal structure. We have the ability to accept and receive sponsorship dollars. We have charitable status, and we can, of course, receive CHR funds and disperse it across the country. So I may highlight this a little bit later, which is why I wanted to introduce it now. So Rare Kids, who are we? We are a diverse coalition of researchers, patient and family partners, as well as some research networks across 16 pediatric research institutions and their affiliated hospitals in Canada, similar to the ACCESS and C17 model. These are a representative of our pediatric research institutions. Now, what is it that we do? We develop and accelerate access to pediatric rare disease trials, as well as access to innovative treatments here in Canada. And how we deliver our impact, we have a big network. We are similar to ACCESS in the infrastructure that we have. We have a centralized clinical trial operations and coordinating hub. This is our core team. We have 8 members, including 2 contractors, a cell and gene therapy consultant, and a regulatory consultant, as well as 2 patient and family partners. So this kind of coordinates all of our clinical trial projects, our support services, and all of the ongoing communications elements. We also have clinical trial navigators. We have 16 individuals that are embedded locally within the child health research institutions. These individuals are the boots on the ground that are helping local study teams to raise awareness around Rare Kids Can, around rare diseases, and the importance of clinical trials and access to treatments. They also help support metrics collection, as well as serve as that point person when we receive requests from industry or biotech partners, as well as investigator-initiated projects that are looking for investigators to participate in their clinical trials. We also have sub-platforms. So these are individual areas of expertise that each have a lead or a co-lead based at the academic institutions across the country, and a working team built around them. Each of our sub-platforms has at least 2 patients and partners that are embedded within it as well. So this is a visual representative of those 15 sub-platforms. So you can see the breadth of expertise. We have biostatistical methods, pharmacology, all the way to the Health Canada relations and advocacy, which I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. Each of these sub-platforms kind of plays a dual role. They offer a consultation service for investigators and project teams that are developing their pediatric rare disease clinical trial, but they're also working on toolkits and guidance documents and resources in their area of expertise. So as people do when they first receive their grant, you do a lot of learning in your first year. Our initial grant application, we received our funding back in 2024. And it was very focused on individual projects, so creating that infrastructure to support the development and execution of trials. What we quickly realized is if we didn't help provide supports on the ecosystem and the system level changes, we wouldn't be driving in more trials. So we went back to the drawing board in the spring of last year, and we are now pleased to launch our new strategic plan. And that's what I'm going to spend a little bit of time on. And what we've done is we will continue to support individual clinical trial projects, but we have also invested more resources on those system level elements that will reduce barriers to conducting and to setting up and conducting pediatric rare disease clinical trials, but also focuses on that access piece. So our 3 priorities, I'll walk through each one of these and give you some concrete examples of the initiatives that are underway. But the first is on strengthening pediatric rare disease clinical trials capacity. And we do have a focus on what we call advanced therapy medicinal product readiness. And what we mean by that is gene therapies, cell therapies, and antisense oligonucleotides. We have a specific focus on this due to the emerging and evolving precision medicine initiatives. This area of expertise is evolving over time, and we see a lot of potential curative treatments that are coming, and we need to be prepared to participate in these types of clinical trials and lead these types of clinical trials. When we did our initial scoping of what's existing across the country, we recognized that Canada is not participating in a lot of these types of trials in comparison to other jurisdictions, and we're not leading and driving investigator-initiated clinical trials despite some of our expertise that exists here. So you will see some elements that are focused specifically on that, but our scope is broader than just the ATMP space. Our second priority is on optimizing participant site and trial matching. And our third is on driving regulatory reform and system innovation. And there's a lot of overlap in the pediatric oncology space here. So I'll spend a little bit of time on there as well. So in terms of our first priority, what exactly are we doing? We are developing a number of toolkits, resources, documents, and SOPs. And I'll talk about the ATMP ones at the end, but recognizing that our scope is larger, we do have some of our sub-platforms that are working on decision aids, helping parents and families make decisions on participating in clinical trials in the pediatric rare disease space, or helping to reduce those barriers as pediatric patients age out of pediatrics into the adult space. So there's a number of different toolkits that if you check out our website in the next 6 months, you'll start to see those emerging. We also have an initiative that's focused on models for inclusion and equity, irrespective of geographical location or socioeconomic status. So this is really focusing on decentralized trials, bringing trials closer to home when possible. But we also recognize that for a number of these early phase academic trials, patients need to travel outside of their jurisdiction to a single center or 1 or 2 or a few participating sites. So we are in the process right now of setting up a travel fund to help support the travel and accommodations for patients and families that do need to travel outside of their jurisdiction. And we're incredibly grateful for the Step 1 group for meeting with us and sharing their insights and lessons learned so that we're not starting from scratch. And this will be evolving and emerging as time goes on in the next couple of months. We will also continue our consultation and clinical trial support services. So as I mentioned, we do offer the consultation services, but we do also offer subsidies for investigator-initiated clinical trial projects, for regulatory support, a validated database, some ethics support, those types of areas of expertise. And then our second priority is really focused on matching. And this is creating an integrated ecosystem for patient identification, recruitment, feasibility, site investigator identification, but also looking at those drug pipelines to help inform the drug discovery pipelines. So we are in the process right now of exploring a conceptual portal for identification, working with a number of systems that are already in existence. So there's a number of existing databases that have genomic sequence data. And so we're looking to see how we can better match patients with clinical trial opportunities and helping give clinicians more access and opportunities to better support patients and families. So we are in the exploratory phase with a variety of knowledge users around what are the pain points, what would they like to see. We also do have an expertise catalog. We have over 180 clinical and methodological experts that have volunteered to be a part of this database, to be contacted to serve as a data safety monitoring board member, so on a DSMB for a clinical trial, but also to be contacted as a site or an investigator in a particular pediatric rare disease trial, and also to be contacted for their area of expertise in developing out a protocol. And then lastly, we do offer a registry concierge service. This is tailored guidance for project teams that are building out their pediatric rare disease registry. Natural history is obviously incredibly important in the rare disease space, and in the absence of having a randomized control trial, we need to have external control arms. And so we do have a team that's dedicated to supporting individual projects in elements such as governance as they're setting up their registry. What data elements should they collect in alignment with Canada's Drug Agency data elements? And also helping to provide guidance and advice on particular data capture systems that are fit for purpose for their particular pediatric rare disease registry. Now, the last priority is on reform. So driving regulatory reform and system innovation. We are incredibly fortunate to be partnered with the Sick Kids Child Health Policy Accelerator led by Dr. Charlotte Moore-Hepburn, who has identified 5 specific policies that we want to champion over the course of the next 5 years. So one of those policies is focused on the practice paper, which many of you have provided consultation and advice on. That practice paper guideline is looking at standard of care off-label use medications that we use all the time, but are still subjected to the clinical trial pathway. There's a lot of cost, a lot of expertise that goes into that. We do have some upcoming meetings with Health Canada to explore what a pilot could look like to reduce some of those barriers for those medications that we want to study that we use as part of our standard of care practice. Charlotte and her team do lead a community of practice that helps inform what these policies will look like. There are a number of individuals that I see here in the room that are participating there. If you would like to participate in those initiatives, we do encourage you to let me know, and I would be happy to connect you. Another policy that I want to focus on that will hopefully introduce some flexibilities for the pediatric oncology space is the gap that exists between the special access program and the single patient study. Right now, we have put forth with MP Marcus Pulowski, there will be a bill that is planned to be tabled shortly. And part of those goals are to reduce the administrative barriers to the current special access program. So right now, clinicians, when drugs are not marketed here in Canada due to our small market size, or they're removed from the market, and there is safety and efficacy data, clinicians and healthcare providers do need to apply for an application through the special access program. And sometimes those applications need to be for the same patient, for the same medication, and they're time limited. So they're over and over, which creates a lot of administrative barriers, ultimately ending up in delays in access. So this private member's bill is aimed at reducing some of that administrative burden so that we can access those therapies faster, following models similar to the Australian model. And I won't get into too much of those details, but happy to chat about it later. We also recognize that when the special access program is denied, we have to set up an entire clinical trial for a single patient study, which is incredibly burdensome. We have to follow the Division 5 regulations, which comes with specialist expertise, time, and cost. So we're looking at pathways or looking at a pathway to help bridge that gap when we are accessing that pathway for treatment only and not research. So we will continue this path and would love for anybody to be involved in our future policy work if that's of interest to you. We do also recognize the importance of global engagement. We need to build out our international counterparts. And so Thierry does lead the Canadian National Mirror Group, which is part of the European Rare Diseases Research Alliance. So we're starting to learn lessons from others and facilitate cross-collaboration. And then lastly, this is something that we also spoke about this morning that we have invested some resources into is access pathways. And what I mean by this is pathways for therapies that are not fit for commercialization, or the therapies that are not commercial, that are going to be commercially viable. So we heard about CAR T cells this morning. We have proposed a pilot project to Health Canada with virus-specific T cells to see if we can work with Health Canada to explore what a pathway within our existing framework could look like. So this is using the terms and conditions, as well as the advanced therapy pathway, and exploring models for reimbursement. So we do have some ongoing conversations in the next couple of weeks to see what a pilot project may look like in this space. But there's a lot of potential overlap with the work that's happening with BioCanRx and others that we heard from this morning. So we are working together to strengthen the case for pathways to be introduced to allow us to have access to these therapies that will not be pursued by the pharmaceutical companies. So in summary, what we do is capacity enhancing, matching, and reform. Now, one thing that I was asked to spend a little bit of time on is on the advanced therapy medicinal product readiness initiatives that we have ongoing. And again, we recognize that there's a lot of experience and expertise in this room and amongst your colleagues. And our goals are really to leverage existing resources, not reinvent the wheel, but break down some of those barriers and learn from one another. So our key initiative 1.2 is really focused on the development and implementation of standardized procedures and training to enable safe, effective, and culturally responsive administration of those advanced therapies. So looking at developing national SOPs for shipping and handling, creating training suites of materials for research personnel, but also creating a cross-institutional network of not only trained research coordinators, but nurses and highly qualified professionals so that they feel comfortable and safe to support the administration during these types of clinical trials. And secondly, part of our deliverables are to create a community of practice on advanced therapy medicinal product trials. And again, this is having the trained cross-institutional group of individuals, network of pediatric research pharmacists. We do already host a group right now, and there are some pediatric oncology pharmacists that have been contributing some of their expertise and lessons learned on the storage of some of these ATMPs. So our goals are going to be to create a contact list of research support staff across the country that you can learn from. So there are some institutions that are a little more advanced than others, and we want to be able to share those lessons learned and leverage that expertise rather than starting from scratch. So what does this look like practically speaking? Here is our roadmap of where we go next. And again, we have an open invitation. We would encourage anyone who's interested to participate in these initiatives and share your experience. We are in Q1 right now, so we're in the process of establishing our community of practice. We will be circulating a terms of reference shortly. And then in Q2, we are planning to launch a webinar series. So this includes things like an ATMP 101. What is a gene therapy? What is a cell therapy? What is an ASO? What is special or unique about those? So really starting at the basics for some of the individuals who want to learn more about that. In Q3 and Q4 of 2026, we will be developing a training suite. I know it says suite up there, but it is a suite of guidance documents, tools, and checklists, depending on what the needs are identified from the community of practice. And then in Q1 of 2027, we'll be hosting a National Cell and Gene Therapy Symposium. They do have some of these symposiums in the US. We all know the political climate right now. We want to be able to create opportunities here in Canada for trainees and researchers to share their expertise and their experience. So as I said, right now we're developing that community of practice and helping to identify toolbox and toolkit development. So if there are areas that you know of that would be helpful for you, please let us know, share those with us. Same with webinars. If there's particular topics that are of interest to you or you are an expert in a particular area around this, we would love to work with you. And so in terms of our community of practice, we would invite not only the leadership from Rare Kids Can, but from pediatric research hospitals and affiliates, patient and caregiver representatives, and then eventually we will also incorporate our regulatory individuals, some from the not-for-profit space and potentially into the industry space. So with that, I will finish and hopefully have some time for questions.
About 2 minutes for our discussion questions, if anybody has any.
Yeah, thank you for that. In your access pathways, have you taken the experience with Glybera and taken it through the access pathways and figured out how, as a Canadian, where Canada made major impact in that discovery, how we would have been able to capitalize more than just charging $1 million for it?
So maybe I'll let Thierry answer that.
No, we have not. So we would love to connect with this group, but that's the goal. The goal is to really look at the model, and there are models in Europe like the hospital exemptions pathway, which has been developed in Spain, where they were able to quantify the cost of manufacturing those therapies within an academic world, whether it's a hospital or university, and find a way for the product, the manufacturing process, to be actually paid by the public payer. So they developed a framework, they identified the cost, and they were able to negotiate with their government the reimbursements Now, those therapies are developed by academic, consortium, not by industry. And of course, the cost of the system is much lower. If you want to connect us with this group, perfect.
Jason?
Yeah, so thanks, Breanne, for coming to present this here. And it's great for someone who works in both these worlds. It's nice to see how they collide. And I think there is things that can be learned on both sides. We built Chris Maxwell under Chris Maxwell's leadership, built sort of the pediatric models and mechanisms network through ACCESS based on RDMM. And I think there are opportunities. Pediatric oncology community has really led in many clinical trials, early phase clinical trials, to look at how to apply that in rare disease. I think there is also an opportunity from the preclinical pathway. Obviously many, genes that are involved in cancer also have, when they're in the germline, cause a rare genetic disease. And so opportunities there to look at how do we make sure that from the discovery, and I think that's happening more and more through these networks, but that there's an opportunity to help create that pipeline to feed in. And the discovery may actually happen not in a rare disease lab, it might be in a cancer lab or vice versa, and making sure that those people are talking to each other, because in the basic science world, those people tend to not necessarily work together per se. The somatic cancer people are not the same as the rare disease people. So I think there are opportunities for cross-pollination.